Good evening and welcome to the Albany Civil Rights Institute. I am W. Frank Wilson, the Interim Executive Director. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. I feel that we are in for a treat. Most of you were not even born in 1963. For me, 1963 was a great year. I finished high school that year. I went to college that year, and I had an opportunity to witness the March on Washington. We're privileged this evening to have students from Albany State University who had the privilege of going to the 50th anniversary of that great march that in many instances changed our nation for the better and continues to do so. I would like to recognize Ms. Mobley, who accompanied those young folk. And at this time, I'm going to give you the bios of each of them and have them come in their own way. First, we have Mr. Kevius Bass, who is from Riverdale, Georgia. He graduated from Campbell High School. He's currently attending Albany State, and he is seeking an undergraduate degree in criminal justice. He is involved in many students' activities and is president of the External Affairs Community of Albany State University Student Government Association. He serves as vice president for the Anointed Albany State Gospel Choir and is an assistant in resident life. Next, we have Ms. Chanel Moore, who is a psychology major. She hails from Long Beach, California, and currently lives in Atlanta. In her years at Albany State University, she has worn the hat of counselor, public servant, selfless leader, and various organizational commitments. Ms. Moore exemplifies the characteristics of a golden ram, and she hopes to graduate in May of 2014. We have Ms. Granisha Parnell, who is a 20-year-old junior majoring in political science with a minor in education. She was born in Waycross, Georgia, and attended Ware County School of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. She is very active in her campus, and she lives by this quotation: "Thank you to the girl I used to be for inspiring the lady I am, and much love to the woman I aspire to be." And last but not least, we have Mr. Robert Robertson. He was born and raised in Stone Mountain, Georgia. He has a dual major in mass communications and marketing. While at Albany State, he has been involved with the Holly Ambassadors, Peer Educators, Student Government Association, the Marching Ram Show Band, and is a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the students from Albany State University.
Many of you heard stories about March on Washington. Some of y'all may have been there or watched it on TV. But just a quick fact about March on Washington, they want to read it.
Okay, well, I won't read it verbatim. But basically, of course, it happened in August of 1963. And the goal of it was, there were several goals for it. The levels of Black employment, work that was offered to mostly African Americans were minimal wages, and it was poor job mobility, the lack of educational opportunities, and blockages for African American constitutional rights to vote, and also the separate justice system for African Americans.
And this year on the March on Washington, we marched for different issues we face today in our schools, our court systems, and everything else. Going to the March on Washington this year was amazing for us. We met people from 1963, people we looked up to, and we met people from other HBCUs. We found out they're trying to do the same things we are trying to accomplish at our university. And we felt better because it's not just us. It's not just us facing the problems by ourselves. We're facing it together, but we just have to get on one accord to get it fixed.
We have a question for everyone in here. The question is on the board. Are you really free? Just think about it in your mind right quick, 2 or 3 seconds. And one person can just answer that question for me. That would do me a great deal of this. One person. Please answer my question.
Well, from my perspective, yes, so we are really free. We are free in many ways. We are free in, for one way, we have the freedom to vote. We have the freedom to go to any university that we would like to. We have the right to choose what color clothes we're gonna wear and everything. So yes, we are free. Those two examples.
Does anyone feel that we're not free? If so, why? Chair.
No, I don't feel like we're free. I feel like, I mean, you want to deal with that, specifically we are, but I feel like even though we have the right to vote, there's stipulations that come with that. A lot of things have changed, a lot of things have not changed. And they just found a different way to disguise it.
It's also, who's at the top. Whatever they want us to see, it's what they want us to see. So if you actually pay attention to some of the music you listen to today, it's roughly the same genre talking about the same thing. Why? Because they try to keep us in a certain box all our lives. And that's why I believe we are not essentially free.
To piggyback off Robert, have you ever noticed how shows back in the day we had shows like the Cosby Show. Nowadays we have Basketball Wives with mostly of the women are black and they're not acting accordingly like the lady of Claire Huxtable did on the Cosby Show. So you think about the big difference, the big shift, and like from that time period, you see a shift in the youth. You see us acting different because that's not what we grew up on. We grew up on a Cosby Show, different world. We were excited about going to college. The only thing you hear students excited about, I want to be this, I want to be famous, I want to be TV shows, football. That's all well and good, but sometimes you have to get your academics first, and I think some people lose sight of that.
Thank you for that explanation. Past that. Just quick, about 5 questions. What are some of the issues that you experience here as an African American in the African American community period that you see now in the United States? Just 5 hands, real quick.
Hello, my name is Romelo Madiamina, and I believe one issue that African Americans face today is that I guess we don't believe in ourselves a little bit more. Like we are more successful than we actually realize. Like going back to the things that are put on television, that's just like I would say kind of like window dressing. If you actually look and research, we're actually like more successful. Like more of us are going to college now and things of that nature. So I think that's we tend to look at more of the negative than the positive actually.
I think you've got to discontinue the school to prison industry in every city in America. There is a subway advertising by the NAACP in New York City that says that the United States has 5% of the world's population, but in big red letters, but 25% of the world's prisoners. I'll say it again. The U.S. has 5% of the world's population, but has 25% of the prisoners. Who are those prisoners? Who makes the money off of that system? What happens to those young men when they leave the prison and try to attempt to come back into a community that will not accept them, will not honor them, will not educate them? They simply go back into the system. That is a blow, a shame to the country. That is not what the civil rights movement has attempted to do. So it seems we need to really question what the disconnect was from we shall overcome to drive-by shootings. We've got to examine that and be honest about that disconnection.
That one of the main issues that African Americans face today is talking about the main issues that African Americans face today. I think a major difference between my generations and the generations before me is that actually when they found out the problem, they actually sought upon a solution. The difference with my generation is that we found the problem, we know the problem, we repeat the problem, we repeat the problem, we repeat the problem, and then we'll just forget that it's a problem. And then we won't remind ourselves that it's a problem until something big happens, like Trayvon Martin. Or we won't remind ourselves that it's a problem until someone gets shot because they got to a car accident. And now we're mad. But we knew it was a problem before this happened. So we just let things go on and on and on until something big comes. It's like, kaboom. Now we have a problem. And then even after that big problem happens or after that problem strikes,
we'll only address it for a certain amount of time, and then our attention is brought on by something more ignorant than what the problem was. So we have a very short attention span. I just think that we're really just so concerned about what the problem is. We know the problems and we need to find a solution. And I just don't think we have the gumption as a generation to do that. So.
My point, can you hear me? My point is very simple. Lack of control of our economic destiny and environment.
And as a teacher, one of the challenges that I see is that our students aren't educated. We teach the standards in K through 12 schools, and when students come to college, they don't know what's important anymore. That's not my idea. One of my freshmen told me that. And when I talk with students and ask them if they read The Color Purple, they say, well, I saw the movie. And we're not educated. We have degrees, but we still haven't been abroad. We don't speak more than one language. There are a lot of things that we just don't know, and I think a lot of that relates to what everybody has said.
Well, these 10 things are some of the things that research say that's a big issue in the African American community. Do any of those really sticks out to anybody in here? Any of those that they see that really just sticks out to just really?
I'd have to say that the lack of identity is the biggest one to me because I feel like we're so stuck in hearing what people have to say about African Americans. Like, I understand, yes, we're proud, to be African American and all that. But if you stay stuck in a mindset to where, people are telling you you're worth nothing, you can't do this, you can't do that, then you can't really identify yourself or like who you are. So I think once we, are able to come to that self-realization that we are somebody and that we are powerful and that we can make an impact on something, then I think that is something that, where we can change the world.
I went to a predominantly white high school, and I was in the advanced class, predominantly white students. It was 3 black students, and I got called a sellout by my fellow peers that were black. Oh, you think you better than us because you're smart. You think you better than this because you with them. You think you better. No, it's not that. You can be on my same level too. I'm not trying to put you down. My thing is when we get to a certain point, we forget where we come from and we don't go back and reach out to where we started from. I've never been a type of person. I hate for another fellow African-American minds to belittle us. We forget how to stick together. It's nothing wrong with being smart and black. It's never nothing wrong with being smart and black. White people look at us as athletes, not just white people. A lot of people look at us as athletes, athletic. Oh, you can run fast. Oh, you can do this. Oh, you can hoop. Oh, you can play football. We can do more than that. We are intelligent. Our ancestors were intelligent. Look where they started. They started a civil rights movement, a national civil rights movement that spread across the nation. We have let people belittle us, and I fought the schools too. It's rare that you hear anything about black people except Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King. What happened to Ralph Abernathy, Benjamin Banneker, striking clock? What happened to the rest of them? But we're not advocating that. We're not telling the schools to put this in your system. We're not telling them to put that in your curriculum to teach our students. The only time you hear about black people is slavery and civil rights movement. That's it. And Black History Month. So when will we start doing that? That's my question. That's my question to my peers, my future educators, my future politics.
Did anyone else? Mr. White.
The main issue that I see that sticks out to me. How y'all doing? My name is Tavis White. The main issue that I see that sticks out to me is number 5, the breakdown of the family. That right there alone is one of the major issues for all our black people in the community, because if you have a breakdown in the family, then you have black males these days. They try to go and find it in different other outlets. They start going, joining gangs, things of that nature. And you got females going, posting videos online, twerking and doing all these other things that are not what you're supposed to do. And they're basically labeling our black folks as ignorant. And I think that the breakdown of the family is one of the major issues that we face today.
Well, I know for me, I actually had two. It was actually between 5 and 6. Mr. White actually explained number 5 very well, so I'm just going to continue to number 6, reduce respect for human life. I'm going to go back to the media as well and discuss some of the things that happen through the media. The music we listen to, it talks about if you have an issue with someone, what do? You simply eliminate them. That's no respect for human life. Some people go through things because of the breakdown of their family and they have no respect for their own physical bodies anymore. They don't want to be on earth anymore. They want to be removed. And the biggest issue with that is since they have no respect for human life, now they really don't care what happens to them in life or, in fact, what happens to others. So that actually causes such an outbreak of different emotions and different things. It actually creates some of these other issues on the board. Sure. The next one is actually educational disparities. In 1963, schools were still in the process of desegregating school systems. Today, 74% of Black children attend schools that are 50 to 100% of now white, which have a significantly fewer resources than the majority white schools.
Today, there are still attempts to stop us from voting. A few are changing the dates, times, places where we can vote. They have made attempts to push some voting office back away from urban areas, change the time and the days to where it is less likely minorities will vote. Cut early voting days, which is when many Black voters vote. Pass crazy voter ID laws and many other deceptive and discriminatory practices. Many of these issues were allowed because of the Supreme Court stripping away the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
In Washington, D.C., we actually attended a town hall meeting. Everybody knows we don't have the constitutional right to vote, correct? Everybody knows that. So lately in states like Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, and Pennsylvania have created laws to hinder Blacks or minorities from voting. In Jacksonville, Florida, I'm a native from there, my family's a native from there. It was a poll at Gateway. Gateway is typically all Black area. And they have actually taken away that pole and placed it somewhere else where it's unreachable by the bus. Most Blacks use the public transportation system. Most Blacks use that pole. So where are they going to go now?
You can ask yourself the question, why is they making it harder for us to vote? Anybody want to elaborate for looking at that? Why do you think they're making it harder for us to vote?
Okay, I think they're making it harder for us to vote because they want us to feel like we don't have a voice. And that is the complete opposite because we do. We as a people, as the minority African Americans, we may not be able to become, the world's majority, but we can make a major difference if all of us really put our minds to it, get people to register to vote, make sure that people get to the polls to vote, and make sure we keep up with all of the updates and the changes and everything that they're making. They want us to feel like we don't have a voice, but what we always need to remember is that we do.
Just a brief comment on voting. When I was in high school, if you reached the age of 18, a teacher would take you downtown and see that you got registered to vote. The lack of things like that, you don't see that now. I don't think we really support each other the way we did when I was growing up. And I was doing that area.
I think the whole issue about voting is simply this, is that a lot of folk recognize that the Black vote, or better yet, the colored vote, when I say the colored vote, not just African Americans, but the vote of other minority groups, have changed the landscape for many politicians. And so if they can dilute or minimize the Black vote, it helps some of those folk who didn't want us to vote in the first place. But more importantly, it cuts that coalition of colored people. Now, we were called colored people a long time ago, but as America is becoming more colored, whites recognize that America is becoming more colored because of the black and the brown and the red and the yellows, and the coalitions that have elected people to places that they never thought folk would be elected, especially the White House. So I think that the voting issue is an issue that we cannot let go away. And I urge you young folk, if you're not registered voters, do so. Before I retired from Albany State, I was appalled at the fact that we have a polling place on campus. And it was the lowest, one of the lowest number turnouts would be at Hyper Gym. And that's unexcusable. So we have to take the vote seriously because there are folk died so that you could have the right to vote. That's my comment.
I'd like to say that voting is an individual right. Each citizen should take it upon himself or herself to go and vote in every election. You can register to vote at age 17 and a half, but you can vote at age 18. Too many of our citizens today are not taking advantage of that right, and they're leaving it up to someone else. But every vote counts. I work with the election board here in Doherty County, and you'll be surprised at the number of eligible voters in the county with the number of actual registered voters in the county. It's not even half of the population. About 1/4 of the population are registered to vote. That is not good. Should be more. And going back to Albany State, you young people from there can help do something about it. The turnout at that polling place has been so low that they're discussing moving it from the county. You should not let that happen, because you should go and vote and encourage everybody else to go and vote. And you need to do that right away. Thank you.
Before we go, actually we were faced with that challenge last year during the election, and we got a good turnout to keep the poll on campus. So the precinct on campus, the precinct on campus. So we're actually promoting that. But the other thing is we have to get students to out vote in local elections, not just national, because we have to realize local elections matter too, because those are the people in the state representing us. And also, we were challenged in D.C. by Reverend Jackson to partner up with other schools to get this voter thing changed, the voter situation changed. We actually have ideas going, and we have to contact them about partnering up with everybody. But when you say young people, we want to work with y'all because y'all have been there and done that. Y'all can always teach us something that we don't know. And that's the thing. Young people can always work with y'all. We don't mind. We look up to y'all. Y'all might not know it, but we really do. Because just like my peer said earlier, that how y'all are so active to get out there and solve the problem. We're not like that. Mostly because some of us are scared. We don't know where to start. So if you help us, partner up with us, we're all for it. We promise.
Before we go to the next person, I did want to say something about the voter situation at Albany State precinct. If I'm not mistaken, I remember the lady from the voter's office telling me that I think one of the highest in the county to turn out last general elections. And not only that, we had teachers bringing the students to the class, to the SG office to register to vote. And we did a great job at Albany State University, the whole campus. We're trying to create more programs like this to inform students that why it's important to vote. Because we don't want them to wait till it's too late when the issue is coming up, like what the Supreme Court just struck down for the Voter's Rights Act. How they struck down half of it, saying the part that really matters, the meat of the Voter's Rights Act. So, we want to change things before we want to be proactive. Mr. D. go ahead.
Thank you. I think one of the things when we look at why are they making it hard for you to vote, I think what we have to look at as a culture of people, why aren't we accepting the challenge to vote even when they make it hard? And we can't just vote because we see someone in office that we like, we have to vote during the midterm elections. These senators are making it tough for a brother in Washington, D.C. Some of these congressmen are making it tough for certain laws that the Supreme Court has passed, but they're still putting barriers in the way to block certain things to help people in this country. So I think when we change our culture at home, which goes back to the deterioration of our family at home, which affects, that's the mighty country, and that's the threshold stimulus, Dr. Campbell. When the home is in disarray, the community is in disarray, the school is in disarray. You spend so much time concentrating on disciplinary issues. You can't talk about, hey, don't forget to tell your parents to go vote. So we gotta be passionate about not just our guy that's in office, but these other people who are running. And we gotta link with other institutions. There's a bad sister that's running in Ohio now. That's an Albany State University. That's an Albany, Georgia problem. Because that young lady get in that seat. Ohio holds a lot of seats when you're talking about running for the president. It holds what is that, 24? How many seats? 24 electoral college. We need Ohio. We need that. So we gotta connect with other universities across the country, and we say the chain is only strong as the weakest link. So when we show that we're passionate about doing something with a student population of about 4,000 students, or give or take, and then 91 student organizations, this is part of now our culture. Hey, we're gonna make sure voting is part of our university culture from day one, like we did with the freshmen about 2 years ago. Everyone must register to vote, doing registration, And when we keep that type of spirit going, and we say to other colleges and universities across America, this is what we're doing in our community to make a difference. Guess what? This thing will catch on fire. So the harder they make it, you got social networks, you got all these other things to really promote what people are doing in other states. I think if we spent time promoting what we're doing and promoting people who are about the business of moving this country's agenda forward, which is my second point, I think we can tear those barriers down easily, because you guys have things, they mobilize you guys on a social network where millions and billions can see it in a second, where it may have taken a whole week to go from Albany to Macon marching. You guys can go from Albany to China in seconds. So we have to use the power of social networking to say, this is what we're doing, post blogs and videos, and encourage other people to do the same. Because I guarantee you it'll catch on fire. And that thing about them making it harder, this is 2013. We can get around that, because you students, they're actually afraid of you.
What are we going to do about it? I'm here. And that's what Antonio just talked about. It is scandalous if every student who is able and at age to become a registered voter at the university and is not, then something is wrong with what you're doing. It ought to be a requirement that you register to vote. Financial aid comes from people in Washington, and you need to be concerned about who you're sending that. So the problem is very clear. What we need now are the answers, and the answers are in this room. I appreciate what you said, young lady, about you can learn from old folks. You're correct. We old folks know a lot. In fact, we old folks are further up the side of the mountain, so consequently we have a better view of the valley. So we can talk to you about what you ought to do, and you need to listen. And the other thing, there can be no learning where there's no discipline. You ought to stop the dudes on the yard from running wild, because it's part of the university. And 95% of the ability to solve a problem is to recognize what it is. You recognize the problem. Let's get busy solving it.
Okay. I speak with a lot of youth all the time in my community, and I think you're saying about how the low count of young kids not voting. I think the passion and the motivation is lacking. And the reason for that is because a lot of young kids think that they don't have a voice. teenagers by 18, around that age, they think that they're not being heard, even if they vote, what's in it for me? So I think we have to come up with creative ways. Now, you can't do what you used to do back when Martin Luther King was, you can't, draw those kids in or draw those young people in that way. You got to find more creative ways to, gain the interest of those. You can make somebody, but you can't, retain them as far as voting. They got to want to do it. They got to have their will. So with the youth of today, you got to come at them in a different angle. And what I mean by that, maybe have concerts. For instance, when Barack Obama was up for election or whatnot, they had major artists, big artists doing promotions on it. They was having concerts, bringing all these youth, and you saw how the big turnout came out with that. I think the same way, even in the community here, we can have artists, we can have things like that, concerts, different little things that gain interest of the youth because, if not, you're just losing. They like what it is for me. So it's the lack of motivation and they're not educated. So when they go in there to vote, they don't actually know who the people are in the list. So it's our duty as a community to educate our youth on who is running, because you can vote for people. I mean, I have seen people just mark anything, and they don't know how serious that is. They don't even know who they're voting for, and that's sad because they haven't been educated, especially in the poverty areas around here. A lot of them don't know who they just marking it, marking. Oh, because he's black, I'm gonna vote for him. Well, seriously, it's true, and that's sad. That shouldn't be the reason why they vote. So I think education, maybe promoting it probably in a concert way, or coming out to the campus. You're saying Albany State is your county. I think coming out to educate the students on who's up running. Tell them, educating them and promoting it, but in an innovative way. That's only how you're gonna get their attention. I'm just thinking from a youth perspective.
Thank you for all your comments.
Now, since problem solving, you made a good point, problem solving. Actually, right now, we're actually, some of us are in the room right now, part of the NAACP chair, the executive committee. And we're actually planning a march in February. On our campus, we really don't celebrate Black History Month like that. And I find that a problem being that we're a historically Black college university. So next semester, we want to have a march. And we're not talking about marching to remember a remembrance march. We're marching for the issues of the day. And we would love for all of you all in this room to be a part with your organizations, your churches, and come march with us. That says a lot. That's our start. That's our jumping. And we say students tend to follow by who they see. Our students are very active. If all of us right now in this room were to run and go start yelling or singing, "We shall overcome," the whole campus might come outside and start singing, which more than likely they will because it's going on. Our students are standing for something, they're saying something. So it's just a point.
Before she leaves, you children, I want you all to know a civil rights icon. This is Miss Brooklyn. I appreciate you coming out and sharing with us. I know she got to go now to choir rehearsal, but I appreciate you coming out.
Miss Harris, got to say something to you.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this time. I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. 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 Oh, let it shine.
And young folks, let me tell you this, every second Saturday, between 1 and 3, you'll get that and the entire Freedom Singers next door at the Old Mount Zion Church. So get ready for the remix. All right.
Last but not least, there is a flyer that looks like this that everyone should have. Everyone have it? Well,
I want to ask a question. You raised a real good point about what do we do, and you said you're looking for. I don't refer to my mentors as being old. I just refer to my mentors as being seasoned. So to our seasoned mentors who've been carrying this torch and they're preparing us to carry it. Do we have a date when we want to have a meeting so we can come together and meet and figure out how we're going to mobilize and get the messages out to the faith-based community, get the same message out to the other Albany Technical College, Albany State College, and how we're going to get it out to the high schools? Because the march got to be bigger than just the people in this room. And in order for it to be bigger, we got to have another an important meeting. So I didn't hear that, and I know if that's the case, I think we can get some printing done, we can get some flyers put up around campus, and get things posted in Southwest Georgia and Albany Herald, and get things also sent out in social networks, because there's a lot of people, when they see something great getting ready to happen, especially when our students got expelled for their involvement in the civil rights movement, that you're talking about home now, that's family, and you don't mess with family. So what I'm saying, what is the plan? Because you asked the question, but we kind of went away from what our seasoned mentors can do to kind of help guide this process so that the march can be big and impactful at 504 College Drive.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I'm excited because it's something that, we have an executive board here from SGA and NAACP, and I really want for them to stand because it's something we talk about in our rooms on a daily, in our halls, and we discuss this all the time, and it's something we've been wanting. Recently on our campus, we had something going on we didn't like, but we was ready to follow your steps. We were about to have sit-ins, take over the campus, take back what was ours, what belonged to us, and it was only because we looked up to you all. We were inspired by you all. We were trying to do what you all did one time before. And so for us this March, it's what y'all want to see. It's what we want to see. We want to connect with other universities. It doesn't matter. We can meet. We have business cards, contact information. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want, we want. Yes, ma'am?
Welcome that opportunity, and the reason I'm talking now because we're getting close to the end. But I would just ask you give yourselves a round of applause for taking on this task. I'm so happy that the media was here, because if you guys had been out there looting, they would have been there. You were doing something constructive, and they were here. And I make sure, because I send them a personal invitation. Because I give them personal chastisement when they don't do stuff like that, because it's important that they see you in a different light. And the more you do this, the better it's going to be. And I'm going to take an opportunity to say something publicly that I said to Dr. Bryant. I was on campus 2 weeks ago to a forum. There were 35 young men there. Not one had on sagging pants, and all of them had on shirt and tie, and I thought it was a miracle. I said this to you, young brothers. When they see you out there with your sagging pants and everything, they don't know you from the hoodlum. You have to be better. You have to do better. You have to look different. Because people see you before they hear you. And if you don't look like the way they want you to look, they'll never hear what you have to say.
That's right now.
And you may have something important to say. Because most of the changes that took place in the system took place by college students.
That's right.
We had the national leaders, but the changes took place by college students. So can you make a difference? Yes, you can. My challenge is, will you?
May I just speak a little bit about your statistics? The statistics are once you finish helping the technical students, the colleges, are you going to be able to reach out to and help the community? Those people that may have been incarcerated weren't able to vote. How are you gonna reach the community and to bring them in to register to vote in the LD and even the handicap? You gotta have a plan to go out into the community to work and get those people to vote because their vote counts too.
Well, this year we actually had people, you know what I'm saying, different organizations teaming up with the Democratic Party of Albany, and we actually did some things. We actually went to Florida with Dr. Dr. Burgess.
You went to Florida?
Yes, ma'am. So we actually, we didn't do that in the community. I'm sorry, we didn't do
I'm talking about our community in Albany.
I do know.
Where our votes are like, and
Yes,
even
ma'am.
this year, they didn't turn out to the votes this last election because they need to be reached. Until we reach our own community, like cleaning up our own backyard, then it's gonna be not up to standards. The vote is always gonna be low. They need to be, they're not educated, the family structure's not there, they don't have the willpower, the self-esteem to get and vote, but to me, they need to be reachable. They need to be taught some type of way.
We did here too. Like we actually, you know, so we had different organizations that did do it in Albany and stuff like that. So I mean, it wasn't like we didn't let it Albany, Georgia, but we try to reach, you know, saying a broader group just as well as Albany. So we did. We was here in Albany, trying to encourage people to vote all over.
One thing I can say about our past SGA president and our past SGA e-board, we were a firm believer of sweep around our own front door before we try to sweep around somebody else's. And so we went out into community, but it's also the thing of getting the community to work with us. Sometimes a lot of people in this community look at Albany State students as a joke. They really do. And it's sad. It's really sad because we come here, we start trying to feed back into the community, but some people are not receptive of that because of what they hear, because how they downplay or how the people in the other community tell them how we are. So we have to fight that too. But I feel like when we start working together with people who are actually in the community and working active in the community, that we'll have this power going. We'll have a real movement, a real advancement in our community with getting handicapped people, the elders registered, the incarcerated people's been registered, dropouts, high school dropouts. We probably can even get them back in school. It's no telling what you can do. I'm a firm believer in reach one, teach one. When you reach out and speak to somebody's heart, that's when you open them up and they're open-minded and they listen and they learn.
We need to have this conversation again. We need to have this conversation, and we need to expand the conversation. Not just we've identified the problems. The next conversation we need to have is to begin to, as Dean Grant pointed out, begin to work towards solutions. I think that I can say with reasonable certainty that my board would allow you to have that conversation here. And so we'll look at our community nights are normally the fourth Thursday. We moved this one up because we wanted to hear from you. And we didn't want to wait until the new year because we felt what you had to say was important. And sure enough, it was. What you had to say and the questions that you have raised are important to this community. And so what I would like to do is get with Ms. Mobley, with the rest of you, and let's plan another community night real soon. And because we don't want this to go away. Because we don't want to do like we do. You know how we do. We get passionate for a moment. You know, we get passionate for a moment. But we want to do this sooner than later. And so, you know, like I said, unfortunately, our community nights designed for 1 hour. And I know that some of y'all got to study, some of y'all got to get your party on or whatever it is that you do. And then some of us old folks got to go home and take our medicine and get to bed. But all of us have something to do. But again, I want to thank you for taking time to come. And I promise you, we're not gonna let this stop with just identifying the problems. We're gonna create an opportunity to sit together again and come up with some answers. Again, I thank you. It's 7:31. We're 1 minute overdue. And, but we have to end it with one more comment.
Albany State University. We've been traveling back and forth down there to their NAACP chapter. These are the Kendrick Johnson case. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the case, but the young man that was found dead in his high school. So Valdosta State University's chapter of NAACP, along with Morehouse chapter of NAACP and FAMU's chapter of Bill Cookman, other neighboring HBCUs and other universities in general, are all meeting up at Valdosta every Friday at 3 o'clock to have a sit-in at the courthouse. And so we would all love if, it's open to everybody. NAACP member or not, we just would like the support of Albany State University and the Albany community because that's very close to here. So the sit-in tomorrow is at 3 o'clock, and it'll be at the Loudoun County courthouse, and it'll be in the lobby. So if you're interested, you can come to that also.